Hello and welcome. Today we're working on the top 15 financial functions in Excel. This is part of our Excel Basics series. This is exercise 8, so feel free to check out all the videos in that series. My name is Jeff from Finally Learn. I help you finally learn financial literacy, including things like Excel. So let's get started. This is based on an article that I saw several years ago called the top 15 financial functions in Excel. I'll give you a link below in the description, but this is an article. You can see that there are 15 functions that this author says are important in Excel. I kind of like his list, so I wanted to show how this works. Let's do a simple little teaching on this. I have videos out on time value of money in Excel, so I'll link to that also. So what happens is we basically have an idea on using Excel. Now the other way to do this is using a calculator like the TI-BA2 Plus. Periods per year, we have the compounding frequency. That's how it works. In Excel, we're going to set everything to a periodic rate. We don't set this. There's not a function for here. On the calculator there is. But the 5 things that we need to know on normal problems would be the number of periods, so years or half years or quarters or months, and then the annual interest rate, and in Excel we need to work with the periodic rate. The present value is the lump sum at the beginning of the problem. The payments is a stream of payments, could be positive or negative. They're the same amount every time, could be every month or every year. And the last one is future value, which is the future value is the lump sum at the end of the problem. Now, one thing we're going to generally do is present value and future value are always going to be different signs. So that's one thing to watch for. They're always going to be different signs. So if we had to force it, we would say present value is going to be generally negative and future value will be generally positive, and the payment could be positive or negative. If we say, I'm going to put out of my pocket, take out of my pocket $1,000 to begin and then $300 a month, then both could be negative and the future value is positive. All right, so let's get started with all the functions. What I've done is I've put a column here to show you what my formulas are. Everything else is just a given number. All right, so let's create a brand new problem, and let's just think about, let's say that you want to invest for 10 years. I'm going to make it 10 years. And you want to invest monthly, so periods per year would be 12. And you think you can earn 8%, and you have $1,000 you can put in that account right now. You think it can grow at 8% for 10 years. Each month is monthly compounding. And you want to set aside, let's say, $300. Now, I'm going to make both of these the same sign. Both could be positive, both could be negative, because this account is growing. The payments happen at the end of the year, so it's going to be 0. So end of the month, end of the period is 0. So what's our total periods? Our total periods are going to be 10 times 12. 10 times 12 is 120. The periodic interest rate is going to be the 8% divided by the 12, the number of periods. And then the future value is the calculation, so that's FV. So we're going to search for FV, future value. And what we need several things. We need the rate. This needs to be the periodic interest rate, or we need to take the 8% divided by 12. We've already done that, and that's the periodic rate. The number of periods is going to be the total periods, so 120 in this case. This is a monthly problem, so we're talking about 120 months. The payment is going to be $300. The present value is going to be $1,000. The payments happen at the end of the period, so we're going to put a 0 there. We have that 0. We're going to point to it. So how much would it grow to? Well, it grows to $57,103. That number, we don't want it to show it as a negative. We can put those numbers in as positive. So I'm going to just change and make a negative in front of future value, and that will just change the sign to be a positive 57,000. So we might have a question that says, hey, what if I have $1,000 and I just get serious about investing and I save $300 a month. I can get 8% for the year for the next 10 years. That's going to grow to $57,000. Now, what this is, and you've kind of noticed this is a template for every future value problem now. We could have a future value problem that says, look, let's say somebody is thinking about retirement and they say, I have $1,500,000. I've got $1,500,000 and I want to withdraw $1,000 every month, and I need to make sure I can do that for 20 years. Well, they could easily do that. They have $1.5 million. They start withdrawing $1,000 at the end of the month, and then that's 240 periods, 20 times 12. The interest rate is still 8%, and that account still grows over 20 years. Now, let's make it more conservative. Let's say you can only get 5% interest. 5% interest, well, it's going to be less than 0.5% per month, and that account grows to $3.6 million. If you need to take out more money, you say, I need to take out $3,000 a month, then this account grows from $1.5 million to $2.5 million. All right, so that's how you do the future value. So you can set it up where it can just grow, calculate if money grows. So let's do it with no payment. Let's just say that over 25 years, we're going to do an annual interest rate, and the annual interest rate is, let's say, 9%. You have $10,000, and the total periods is 25 years. You can get 9% is our interest annually and as a periodic rate. So that one investment, $10,000 present value, can grow to $86,000 in 25 years. So you can do that all the way through. This calculates lots of different things on future value. This is one of the most basic things that you'll do in time value of money. This is why you invest, to hope for a larger sum in the future. Number two, the future value schedule. Future value schedule says, look, what if you invest $1,000 and then over years, 4 years, you return 10% one year, 9% one year, then 8%, then 8%. So you can change the investment return by year, which is pretty amazing. So future value schedule is really easy. So let's just change this. The future value schedule is going to be the principal, the $1,000, and then the schedule, and then over those periods of years, it will grow to $13,098. Well, let's put in $10,000. And let's say that it grows 5% year one, 7% year two, 8% year three, and then 10% year four. Well, then over time, then it grows from $10,000 to $13,347. So future value schedule can be helpful if you want to change your interest rate each year. Now, another one that's very, very common is present value. What is the present value of a future amount or a present value of a stream of annuities? All right, so let's get rid of all this, and let's just come up with our own little problem. Let's say for a period of 10 years, you're going to receive annual payments. The interest rate is, let's say, 7%. There's nothing in the future, but you're going to receive a schedule along the way. You're going to receive, let's say, $100,000. Okay, you're going to receive $100,000 over 10 years, and let's say the payments happen at the beginning of the problem, at the beginning of the year. The payments happen at the beginning. So this would be, you have received some kind of settlement, and they're going to pay you $100,000 starting today, the beginning of each year for 10 years. So that's 100,000 times 10. That's $1 million total. So what's our total periods? Our total periods is going to be 10 years times 1. 10 years times 1. So that's 10 periods. The periodic rate is going to be 7% divided by here, the periods per year. It's not important if it's 1, but it's the principle. We can set this up as a template. We can adjust. Then the present value is going to be a simple little calculations just like we did before. Present value, the rate is 7%. We want to use the periodic rate. The number of periods is going to be 10. The payment is going to be 100,000. The future value is going to be 0. And the payments happen at the beginning of the period. This answer is going to be a negative number. So we'll just put a negative in front of the present value to force it to be a positive number. So what this is you receive $100,000 10 straight years. That's $1 million, but it's worth $751,000 today. Or the way you can think about it is, if you invested $750,000 today, you could start withdrawing $100,000. Assuming you get a 7% return, you could withdraw 10 equal payments of $100,000 each. Let's change our problem a little bit. Let's say we want to, this is the present value. Let's say at the, we have 20 periods and it's going to be semi-annual. You see everything is built here on a formula, so we change our inputs and it works. Let's say the future value is 200,000. We're going to receive 200,000 at the end. Got too many zeros. And along the way, we receive, let's say, $10,000. We receive $10,000 every 6 months. This is semi-annual. So the payments happen at the end of the period. So if you need a 7% return, then what happens is all that is worth at $264,000 today. So you can calculate present value, you can change the years and the periods per year and so on. All right, the next one is called net present value. Net present value, we set up an initial investment of $1,000 and then we put in the stream of payments and then we have a discount rate and says, how much is this worth? So here is what happens on net present value, and I'll build this here for you. But we say, all right, you put in $1,000 is your cost on time period 0, and then after 1 year you receive 300, and then 400, then 400, and then 300 again. What is your net present value? So it takes the present value of this stream of payments and compares to the 1,000. If you receive anything less than 1,000, you'll have a negative net present value. If you receive anything more than 1,000, you'll have a positive net present value, and that'll be acceptable. Now, this is very dependent upon the interest rate you select. So at 6%, you see the net present value goes down. At 10%, the net present value goes down again. At 12%, the net present value is still going down. All right, so let's go back and let's just use 6%. Let's say we have an investment that is, let's say, negative 100,000, and we're going to receive 30,000, 45,000, let's say 25,000, and we're going to receive 30,000. So we have a little bit of net present value that's positive. Let me show you how this one works. So our formula is net present value, NPV, and it says what's our interest rate? Our interest rate is 6%. What is the value? The value is going to be the stream of payments here. So that means if we just stop right here, the present value is 113,000 of these at 6%. This is 1 year away, 2 years away, 3 years away, and 4 years away. So to make it work, we need to then add plus the original negative 100,000. So that's going to make the 113,000 make it exactly 13,105. Now, if the interest rate's higher, if we require a 10% return, then we only get 3,736. So what net present value does, it lets us calculate, we want a 10% return. If we get more than the 10% return, then it's a positive NPV. So the decision on NPV, if NPV is greater than or equal to 0. If it's greater than or equal to 0, then we would accept. And so here, yes, we'd accept this project because it has a positive net present value. Now, the next one is, what if we want a net present value with a schedule of cash flows with different dates? See how this is different? So we call this XNPV. So one thing it allows us to do, it allows us to take not only the stream of payments, but also the dates. So the dates is not just 1 year away, 2 years away, pretty simplistic. It is specific dates. So what I did, I set up dates. This is December 1st, and this is January 1st, so only a month away. And then 13 months away, so this is February 1st, 2022. So we can see how this works. So let's do a XNPV. All right, so this is XNPV. This is the new one. So our rate is going to be 5%. Our values are going to be all these numbers, including the negative. We couldn't do that on NPV. The dates, we need to know what dates they happen on. So here, our XNPV is $290,000. If we increase our interest rate to 6%, then you'll see we have the XNPV is going to be a little different, 7%, and so on. Okay, so this is net present value. It's a newer NPV function, net present value schedule of cash flows. All right, let's do exercise functions 6 through 10. The next one is just a payment. How can we calculate a payment? So let me show you how this works. Let's do a simple little car loan. Let's say that we're going to buy a car for 5 years, and we're going to pay for it monthly. The annual interest rate, let's just make it 7%. The present value, let's say you buy a car for $27,000. Now I have this one where I can enter as negative. I don't know if I love doing that, so let me, yes, okay, because I have present value and future value. So we want to, we can enter that as negative on our initial calculation, right? On the payment, we'll do that. We're not going to show it as negative here. So let's say we're going to pay off this loan in 5 years. We borrowed $27,000. We're going to have a future value of 0. The payments happen at the end of the period. So what's our total payments? So it's 5 times 12. 5 times 12 is going to be the 60 months. The periodic interest rate is going to be 7% divided by 12. And the payment is just a payment function. So it is PMT. We need the rate. We're going to use the periodic rate. The number of periods is 60. The present value, here's where we're going to enter it as negative. So 27,000 is negative. The future value is going to be a positive 0, right? Doesn't really matter the sign if it's 0, I guess. And then the payments happen at the end of the period. And so therefore we have a payment. We have a payment of $534 to buy this car. Well, what if you go to your credit union and they say, hey, we can give you a car loan for 5.5%. Well, your payment goes from $534 down to $515. So that's good. You can calculate this all along the way. You could do this for if you need to calculate your credit card payments. You need to say, hey, I'm trying to pay off my credit card balance, and what would it take? And you can figure out, what would it take to pay it off in so many years or months or whatever. All right, let's do one where we have a principal payment. Now, the total payment represents principal and interest. You can figure out just the principal amount if you want to. So here is our problem. We have a 5-year. In fact, let's go back and look at, do the same problem here. So we had our car loan was $515. Let's go back and change it to 7%. We had $534. Let's see if we can figure out the principal payment here. So we have 5 years, 12 periods per year. We have 7%. We have a present value of $27,000. The future value is going to be 0. The payments happen at the end of the period. And we're going to say, you know, for the very first interest payment 1, well, how much principal and how much interest and how much our total payment? Our total payment's $534. What would be the interest amount on that first payment? All right, so we have the same kind of numbers going on, and let me show you how this works with our principal payment. So we're going to search for PPMT, principal payment. The rate is going to be the periodic rate. The period number is going to be period 1. The number of periods total is going to be 60. The present value, we need to enter it as a negative $27,000. The future value is going to be a 0 because we're trying to pay this thing off. And the payments happen to the end of the period, also another 0. So what happens is, if we make our first payment, we buy this car for $27,000. The very first payment is $534. The very first payment has principal of $377. So if we took the $534 minus the $377, how much interest do we pay? We pay $157.50 of interest the very first year. Okay? So you can do this, the payment, total payment, the interest portion, and then the principal portion. All right, so we're halfway through here. Let's do internal rate of return. So if you have an investment, you have a $1,000 investment, and it grows. This is our problem we had earlier, the same kind of problem. This is related to net present value, so I'm going to grab these numbers. I'm going to grab these numbers and say, what if it were 100,000 and 30,000 and 45 and 25 and 30? What is our internal rate of return? All right, so here's what happens. We don't need a discount rate. This one right here is completely useless. We can change it. It's not going to happen. Nothing happens with this. So let's say we require a 10% discount rate. We require a 10% return. So let's do internal rate of return here on this one. This is a very powerful function. It's easy to do, but it's very powerful, because otherwise it's kind of difficult to do this. So our values are going to be, we're spending 100,000 and we're getting back 30, 45, 25, and 30 over 10 years. And we can guess, let's say we guess 10%. Well, here our internal rate of return is 11.77%. Now, if we require a 12% return, then we would not accept this 11.7. If we require a 10% return, then yes, we're happy with the 11.7, almost 0.8% return. So internal rate of return gives us, instead of the dollar amount, it gives us, so for example, 11.77, watch this. No, the wrong place. 11.77 will make essentially our net present value to be 0. In fact, if we did it perfectly, this number right here into our net present value, if we put that number there, I need to calculate it, so let's do this. Pay special values, right? 11.77, then it makes net present value. So here's my point. The internal rate of return is the exact return that makes your net present value 0, right? We required a 10% return, but if we required 11.77, then we would still have it because the net present value would be 0. We still would accept. At 10%, we have a positive net present value. Here, we want a 10% return, and we're getting an 11.77 almost 8% return. Now, number 9 is modified internal rate of return. Now, one of the assumptions that we make in internal rate of return is that you reinvest at this 10% level, which is not always really true. So let's do modified internal rate of return, and we have a reinvestment rate that we can use. So let's look at the modified internal rate of return. So let's look here. We've got values, we got the finance rate, and we've got the reinvestment rate. Okay. So let's just set up this problem. We require, let's say, 5% return. We can change that certainly. And we have, let's do our same amounts here. We require we have $100,000 investment, and then we get all these streams of payments. We require a 10% return, right? Up here, same thing. And if we have to borrow money at 12 and we can reinvest it at 10, then we're only going to get an 11% return, 11.01. So here's how the modified internal rate of return is a little more sophisticated. So it's MIRR. So what we have is our values are going to be all these values. Our finance rate is 12%. Finance rate is the interest rate you pay on the money used in the cash flows. The reinvestment rate is what you take when you receive cash flows. How can you reinvest them? We can only get a 10% return here. And so therefore we're going to point to the 10% and hit done. We've got an 11% return. Now, if we could finance this at, say, 6%, then it really matters what we're doing with the reinvestment rate. All right, so for example, if we could reinvest at 11%, it's going to increase our modified rate of return. If we could reinvest at 11.77, then we essentially have this same internal rate of return calculations we do for the modified internal rate of return calculations. So let's go back and put those numbers that we had. There you go. All right, number 10 is the internal rate of return schedule if you have a cash flow schedule. So let's go back and assume 10% is our discount rate. We've got, let's assume these. Let's go back. I like these numbers here. Well, what if we have a schedule here, just like we would on the future value schedule? So this is an XIRR. So this is X and then internal rate of return. So this is a internal rate of return for a cash flow schedule. Need to go here. Our values are all the ones, the initial cost plus the years 1 through 4. The dates here, and we can guess. If we don't guess, it'll guess 10%. So let's just guess 0.10. So the internal rate of return, if we have the dates here, then it's 18.99. Now, this was annual, so we need to be something like, this would be 12/1/21 and 12/1/22, 12/1/23, and 12/1/24, and we end up with virtually the same answer we would on the internal rate of return. Okay, but we can modify the dates, and the dates don't have to be annual, right? They could be every month along the way. So 18.99 was the one we got. All right, we got 5 more to do. Our total periods are this number of periods, right? So we're going to search for number of periods, NPER. So the number of periods is going to be the periodic rate. The payment is going to be the negative 100. The present value is going to be 5,000. The future value is going to be 0. And the type payments happen at the end of the period. And so therefore we got 93 periods. I'll take out this note here for present value. All right, so we have 93 periods, and we want to know how many years would that be. It's going to be 93 divided by the number of periods per year, 12, so that's 7.76 years. So we have, if you made $100 payments, then it would take 7.76 years, so 7 3/4 years. If you say, look, I think I can stretch and make $150 payments, then it cuts it in half down to 3.8 years or 3.9 years, a little less than 4 years. So you can do the math on this and figure out how many periods are we talking about. All right, let's do the annual interest rate. So let's put in, let's say we have the number of years. Let's say you're going to do this for 20 years. You got 12 periods per year. You've set aside, let's say, $5,000. And you're going to invest $300 each month. And then over a long period of time, it grew to $145,000. Okay? Well, looks like you have received about 5.5% return. So let's show you how to do the math on this. So the total periods is going to be 20 times 12, so that's 240 periods. The periodic interest rate is going to be the rate function. So we'll do rate. So the number of periods is 240. The payment is going to be -300. The present value is going to be -5,000. The future value is going to be $145,000. The payments happen at the end of the period. And so let's calculate it. Well, we get a little less than 0.5% per month, looks like, periodic interest rate. And so we should be able to take the 0.455% times 12 periods per year, and we annualize it then, and you're making about 5.46% return. Well, what if your investment grew to $165,000 rather than $145,000? Well, that's a 6.5% annualized return. What if you only put in $250 a month? Well, then you had a bit better return because it still grew to $165,000. All right, so that's how you do the rate. These last three little financial functions are really quick, so let's do this. Let's say you have 12% compounded monthly. So what is that in terms of an effective annual interest rate? So that's called the effective function, the effect here. So let's do search for effect. So all this does is convert a nominal rate, 12%, based on the number of periods, 12 periods per year, to an annual rate. So 12% compounded monthly is the same as getting an annual rate of 12.68%. Now let's watch how this works. If it's annualized, if it's 1 period per year, then it's going to be 12. If it's twice a year, then it's going to be 12.36. If it's 4 times a year, then 12.55. Doesn't move a lot from 4 to 12. So it's 12.68%. So you can work and figure out how it works that way. All right, let's take and calculate from an effective interest rate. Let's calculate what is the nominal interest rate. So the effective rate, let's say, is 12%, 12 periods per year. So we're going to do a nominal rate. So we need to search for nominal. So the effective rate is 12%. The number of periods is 12. I don't want to type that in. I want to point to it, right? So 12 periods per year. So it's going to calculate the nominal rate. We could get 11.39% compounded monthly, and that would be effectively 12% for the year. So let's do this. 12.68% is effectively, the effective 12.68 is getting a nominal interest rate of 12%. So you can kind of work your way and figure out the difference between effective versus nominal rates. The last one, number 15, is straight line depreciation, very common. So let's say we have the cost of an asset. Let's say it's $500,000. And the salvage value is, let's say, $25,000 at the end of 10 years. End of 10 years. So here's our straight line depreciation. Here's how we calculate it. So straight line is SLN, and it says, hey, we want the cost. The cost is $500,000. We want to know the salvage value at the end, $25,000, and what is the life? Well, it's 10 years, so we can do done here, and that is annual depreciation of $47,500. I typically don't do straight line depreciation like this because it's simply cost minus the salvage value divided by the year. So I just use a formula rather than using the Excel function. But here it is, all 15 Excel functions in terms of financial functions. So I hope this is helpful for you. If this is helpful for you, please thumbs up, please subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.